Today we're going to create a chatbot, and before we start we are going to make sure we have the most recent version of Node. So if you do not have node.js, go ahead and download it here. The link is below, and then once you have it, go ahead and open your command line, and I'm just going to go into my desktop by going to this folder and then back into the desktop, and we are going to go make directory chatbot, and this is where we're going to put our chatbot, and we'll go ahead and cd into chatbot. And if you are not sure you have the most recent version of Node, you can go sudo npm install npm-g, and when you run that, it will make sure you have the most recent version. I have the most recent version, and so I'm going to go ahead into the next step, which is to initialize your Node application. And so to do that, we'll go npm init, and this will init this folder as a Node application. We'll keep Chatbot as the name. We'll kind of just enter through all of this. Our entry point up here, we are actually going to be writing code for that in a bit. We'll say this is fine. And there's our package.json, which basically holds all of this type of information. And so for our application, we are also going to need to install some dependencies. And so we're going to go npm install Express, and Express is just a framework that we can use to make writing our JavaScript easier. And so Node is a platform that allows us to write our server-side code or our backend code in JavaScript, and then Express is a framework for Node that allows us to make it like super easy to write that. And so the next dependency we'll also have is request, and this is going to allow us to send messages to people that send messages to the bot. And then we'll also have body parser, which is going to allow us to receive and processes the messages that users send to the bot. And then we're also going to do --save, hit enter, and this will install our dependencies, express, request, and body parser. And these we have to have these in order for the application to work, because if the chatbot can't receive messages and can't send out anything, then yeah, what's the point of that? And with that all done, we're going to go ahead and open a Sublime page. And Sublime is just a text editor, and so you can download it from the link down below, or you can use whatever text editor you want, Atom, but make sure that it is in plain text and not rich text. And so we're going to go ahead and create this index.js file, the entry point for our application, and this is where we're going to write a lot of server code. And so bear with me, it's going to be kind of a lot. And so we're going to say use strict, which is basically going to say we have to do like var or let before a variable name, like when we're creating variables. It's just something nice to have. And then we are going to write in the fact that we require our dependencies. It's just nice to have and necessary to say that we require them, or else the application will not work. And so we'll write these in for each of our dependencies. And then we'll go ahead and initialize our app, and it is going to be an Express application. And then we're going to go ahead and set some stuff for our individual application, and that's going to be identified as app here because that's our constant. And we are going to set the port, and to do that we're going to say what are we setting? The ports, and it's going to be one of two things. It'll either be given the environment. Sometimes there is a port set that's really good for, applications like this, and so we'll say, if there is a port already set within the environment, then go ahead and use that. Otherwise, use 5000, and that is not a string there, it's just the number 5000, and then we'll go ahead and close this last parenthesis. And so here we're setting the port. It will either be the environments, whatever that is configured to that number, or it'll be 5000 if there isn't a specific number configured in the environment. Then we'll go ahead and write some lines that allow us to process our messages, and so this has to deal with the body parser. And there we go, that's going to allow us to process the data, and then we're going to go ahead and set up some routes. And so the first route that we are going to set up is just the slash, and so whenever you go to say google.com, you have that slash, but you don't have anything after it unless you search something. So this is like that first slash before you enter something into Google, but it's for our application. And we'll test this in a little while. And so we'll have this request and response in here. And then inside of our function, we are going to go ahead and say res.send. So with our response, send hi, I am a chatbot. And so if everything goes through and we're at that URL or that route that has the slash, then we'll go ahead and send the fact that it's a chatbot. And the second route that we are going to set up is going to be for Facebook. And basically it's kind of like a security thing. And so we're going to have this app.get web hook. And basically with our request, we are going to go ahead and pass a special token, and then we'll verify that token is correct. And then if it's correct, then we're going to allow the user to use that application. So it's kind of like a password. So we'll go ahead and same thing, request and response, and then open these curly brackets. And inside of here, we'll say if the requests query at hub.verify token, and so whatever the value is in the query request, if it's equal, and our password here is just going to be Blondie Bytes. I will change it later so you guys don't hack me, but if it's equal to Blondie Bytes, we're going to go ahead and send with our response the request.query hub.challenge. Otherwise, we're going to send the fact that it's the wrong token. So here what we do is Facebook is going to go to this webhook, and then we're going to check that the request, whatever Facebook's requesting, that token is equal to Blondie Bytes. If it is, we'll go ahead and send back like, hey, it matched. Otherwise, we'll send back, yo, you have the wrong token. And then the last thing we're going to do in this file is we are going to start the server. And so to start a server, you have to start listening, or it has to start listening to requests. And so the way URLs work is that when you go to google.com, you go ahead and send a request like, hey, I need Google, and then Google sends back, oh, here's the information you wanted. And so what we're doing here is that the server has to be listening for these requests in order to get any response back from the server, if that makes sense. And so it has to start listening at a port number, and we already set this port number up above in line 9 here, and we are going to set that port. And basically we're going to go get the port, and then once we get that port, we're going to go and say the fact that it's listening. And so we're going to say running port. Saving this, we'll go back to our command line. And we are going to make this a Git repository. And so Git is a technology that we can use for version control. And in this case, we're going to be using it to push this local code up to the cloud. And so we're going to go ahead and do git init. If you do not have Git installed yet, there's a link down below. And so you can go ahead and do that. And then there's one more thing we have to add inside of our Chatbot folder here. It's super quick. It's for where we're going to be hosting it. And it's going to be called a proc file. And this is something that will tell wherever we host this, it's going to tell it, hey, this is a web application and I'm using Node, and the my entry point is the index.js. So we'll save that. And then now we're ready to go. So now that we have all of our code ready, we'll go git add dot, and that will add everything, all of our changes to this folder, or everything that we've added so far is going to be added in this commit. And so Git is filled with like a bunch of commits. So I'm going to go git commit -m, and we'll say initting chatbot. And these commits, these changes are what build your application over time. So it's kind of like saving in Photoshop or something. And now that we have all of our changes saved locally through Git, we can go ahead and push it to the cloud or to the hosting service that we are going to use to host our server code. And so what we're going to use is Heroku. And so if you do not have Heroku, the link will be down below, but you can just go to heroku.com, create an account, and ultimately you will want to download the Heroku toolbar, and that link will also be down below. So you create your account, download the toolbar, and then you'll be ready to go on with this tutorial. And so to double check that you have Heroku and the tool belt, you go Heroku -- version, and something like this should pop up. Yeah, and so once you have that, you'll be ready to go. And in order to do this, we're going to go Heroku login, and this will log you in here. And so my email is blondiebytes, and then I'll type in my password here, And then voila, I'm logged in. And now that I'm logged in, I can create applications. And so I'm going to go heroku create, which is going to create this application on the server. And now I got to delete some accounts or projects, I mean. Okay, so I deleted an app so I did not have to pay. And so we're going to go heroku create. And this is going to create my application just like that. And mine is called Young Earth, with all these numbers. Yours will be called something different. So don't worry about that. Just kind of remember this. This is what kind of matches, or this is where your code is. It's at this Heroku app. And now we go ahead and push this code up. And so we'll go git push, because git is how we're pushing it up to Heroku. Where are we going to put it? Heroku, and then master, that master branch. Yeah, you just have that. So this is going to take a little bit. Go get some coffee. And so this deployed to this web address. And so we'll go ahead and copy that, plug that in. And since we had no syntax errors, we go ahead and see, hi, I'm a chatbot. If you did have syntax errors or you have some kind of error here, go ahead and double check your code. And what I like to use is something called JSDo. And so you can copy all of your code from Sublime and then paste it into this thing, and it will tell you if you have any errors. If you have something that's like a require error, don't worry about that, but it'll tell you if you have any like really bad syntax errors that you should probably fix. And then you'll go through this process again of git add, git commit, and then git push. Yeah, so this is a good sign. Now we're going to go ahead and go to the Facebook side of this. And so we are going to go to an address called developers.facebook.com/apps. And here we're going to create a new application on Facebook. So we'll add a new app here. We'll just use the basic setup here. And we'll call this Chatbot tutorial or YouTube tutorial. I did another one previously. Doesn't matter the category. Oh, I guess we do need a category. We'll call this education. This is looking good, so we'll go ahead and create that and then add stuff in here. I cannot read that. And there we go. Now we have our application, and then we're going to go ahead and click Messenger Get Started, and this will create our the messaging bot. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to message a page, and so I'm going to select a page here. Blondie Bits goes with my blog. So we'll continue, blah, 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 and go just whatever. So basically what's going to happen is a user is going to message a Facebook page, and so say it's Blondie Bits, and then our bot is going to send them something back based on what they said. And so I am actually blocking out this page access token because it's kind of like a secret token you shouldn't let people see. And so yeah, that's going to be blocked out. But it will be important that you have that token and keep it safe. If you do not have a Facebook page yet, go ahead and make a Facebook page and then come back to this tutorial and then link it just as I did there. Yeah, and then inside of here, we're going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to set up a webhook, which is something that we did before. So you'll copy the address that you had from over here and you'll just say webhook with that slash. And my token that I said for it to verify was Blondie Bytes. And so I'm going to go ahead and type this here. And then we're going to have our message deliveries. We're going to have our messages. We're going to have our postbacks and our options right there. And then we're going to verify and save. And if everything is good, we should be good to go here. And then we're going to go back to the command line here. And so I have this curl command saved, and I'll put this little bit down below so you don't have to type it all out. But it's going to allow our chatbot to send messages, and it's going to allow Facebook to also send messages the other way. And so we'll have this access token, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste my token, or generate it again. It's again going to be whited out because, yeah. Put in that token, close that quote, and then go ahead and hit enter. And then it should return a JSON object with success having the value of true, and that's great. Now the last thing we have to do is set up our chatbot to send and receive messages. And so we have all the connections here, but we haven't written the code that actually does this for us. And here we're going to go ahead and add one more thing to our app, and we are going to do a post, which is what our application is going to give back to Facebook, and it's how that like process and receive and then sending back another message is going to work. And so we'll have a request and response as always, And then inside of here, we are going to get our messaging events. And so say you send like a bunch in a row, then this is what this would consist of. And so we have messaging events, request body.entry at 0.messaging. So here we're just getting the messaging here. And then we are going to say for let I equals 0 while I is less than the messaging events dot length. Then we're going to go add and increment I. So this is going to allow us to iterate through each message or each event. We're going to assume these are messages here, but we're also going to write the code to double check that our assumption is true. And so we're getting the messaging event that is at I, and that'll go from I to however long or however many messages there is. And then we're going to get the sender, which is going to be the sender ID. And then we're going to say, if there is a message and that message has text, then we're going to go ahead and do some stuff. And so we're going to say let the text, which is just going to be a variable that's going to save our text, or the text that the user sent. And once we have that saved, we're going to have the send text back, which is going to have the sender ID in it. And then we're going to say text echo. Text.substring 0 to 100. And then after the for loop here, we're going to go ahead and send the status 200 because that means our request, that all that thing, you know, everything we just did went okay. And so this send text function we actually have not written yet. And so we're going to need to create a function that actually sends a specific text message. And so to do that, we're going to write a function send text. And it's going to take the sender as well as the text, open close curly brackets there. And then inside of here, we're going to create a variable called message data, and it is just going to hold the text as the text. This is a little, you know, object here. And yeah, we're going to set the text as the text, and then we're going to go ahead and send a request to Facebook. And so we're going to use that URL from before, like this. And then after the /me, we're going to go ahead and write messages. And then we'll add a comma, and then we'll add QS is the access token. And token is a variable we have not created yet, but up here I'm going to write token, and then inside of here I'm going to write my page token. But we'll keep that up there so you don't see it. But we're setting our access token as that token. We'll say our method is post. We'll create a JSON here, which has the recipient as the ID sender. And then we'll send the message with the message data, which in this case only consisted of the text, but as you send bigger messages where they have like pictures and stuff, the message data would be different. And we will go through that in a different tutorial. Then we're going to add a function in case something errors. We'll say if error, we'll print out the fact there's an error, like this. If there's a problem with the body of the response, then we'll go ahead and send that. We'll add a comma here. We'll add a comma here. Commas are super important, people. And there we go. Our code is complete. Now we just have to commit all the changes, push it up to Heroku, and then we'll be able to message Blondie Bits or my page. And now with all those commas put in, we'll go ahead and go to our command line here, do git add, git commit -m enabling functionality, git push Heroku master. This will push it up to Heroku, and because Heroku and Facebook are linked, then we can go ahead and just message the page. And now navigating over to that, we'll go ahead and message, and we'll say something like hello once this loads. And it's not responding, so that means we must have a syntax error somewhere. So let's do some debugging by going Heroku logs, and this will help figure out what the problem is. And here it says reference error token not defined. So when I created my token, I didn't add a let, and that is what caused all of this nonsense. And one more thing to change here, change messaging to messaging events, save that, and then change the comma to a colon. And then we also have to change receipt, which I misspelled, to recipient. This has to be perfectly matching in order for all this to work. Gotta have all those commas and nonsense. We'll go ahead and message again. All this testing, and there we go. We have our text message echo. That's awesome. All of those syntax issues, they suck. So if I said something like happy, it would text echo happy. And why did it do that? Well, if we go back to our code, we'll see it got our message, but then it took the text from the original message that the sender sent, and then it sent it back to the sender, but with this text. So you could put anything in here and it would send that back. You could also do an if statement that's like if text.includes happy, then send this text, otherwise send this other text. And then you can also combine it with machine learning, and then you can pair different things, like if they talk about the weather, send this, that type of stuff. And that's where this really comes in handy. And so this tutorial was just getting you started with chatbots, but in the next chatbot tutorial, we'll talk about how to create some of those bigger and more complicated libraries into this. And so I will see you then. Bye-bye.